explain it to other people. It's kind of one of our goals is to simplify this enough where you're confident being able to talk about it to other people, give you a couple of frameworks to get started, and then talk about your learning journey. And so, as Kathy said, we'll shoot for about 35 minutes, as long as I don't tell too many side stories. Get it done in about 35 minutes, and we'll leave the rest of that time for Q&A. So, in essence, what's happening is artificial intelligence as a field of study, an area of research, goes back to the 1950s. So, almost 70 years we've been working on these ideas of artificial intelligence, of giving machines human-like capabilities. But 2022, when ChatGPT was introduced by OpenAI. And so ChatGPT gave everyone the ability to actually use artificial intelligence. Prior to that, and really prior to kind of this generative AI age starting in 2022, it was really more machine learning based. It was about making prediction machine learning engineer to AI. But Sam Altman had sort of given us a preview in, and so he wrote a blog post called
Recording in
certainly
progress.
includes the marketing industry where we started. But I've spent a lot of time in recent years thinking about the story of AI beyond marketing. A lot of my public speaking is to non-marketing audiences, from educational leaders to nonprofits to CEOs and leaders of associations in different industries. And so in summer of 2024, I introduced SmarterX, which is an AI research and consulting firm, and the whole focus there is to help people reimagine businesses, reimagine what's possible across different industries. So coming back to the Intro to AI for Marketers, as Kathy mentioned, this is the 42nd edition of this, going back to November 2021. And this is one of our initiatives to accelerate AI literacy for all. Our thinking is let's give this away for free, give people the foundation, and then from there they can decide to do with it what they will. So one of the things we want you to take away from here is how transformational AI is and how you really need to have a sense of urgency to figure this out and help your organization and your industry move forward as a result of it. So AI is changing everything across how we run businesses, how we do our marketing, how we think about our tech stacks. As we're thinking about 2025 budgets and strategies, we need to be thinking about how AI is changing those things. And what we know is more and more people are adopting it. This is a spring 2024 study from Microsoft and LinkedIn that said 75% of people are already using AI at work, and 46% of those had started in the last 6 months. So that would be kind of late 2023 to spring 2024. Now, this doesn't mean 75% of businesses have figured this out and are actually like planning and scaling it. It means that you may be using ChatGPT on your phone while you're at work. So it's not about the depth of change management and everything that's gone into it, like true transformation. It just means we're trying it. Now, we're under the working assumption that at least 80% of what knowledge workers do every day will be AI assisted to some degree in the next 1 to 2 years. Now, a knowledge worker is someone who thinks or creates for a living. Basically, think of it as someone who uses a computer to do their job. Marketers would absolutely fall within the knowledge work category. In the United States, there's 136 million full-time employees. Roughly 100 million of those are knowledge workers. Now, AI assisted to some degree doesn't mean it's going to do your job for you. But as we'll talk about, a job is a collection of tasks. And when you start thinking about those tasks, AI is going to be there assisting at the task level in a lot of the things you do. Now, why is that? And why am I so confident that it's going to be at least 80%? Because every major technology company is infusing AI into everything. So if you think about the software that you use to do your job, that software 1 to 2 years out won't exist without AI in every aspect of it. So if you think about Google, not only do they host the data through Google Cloud, they build language models. Gemini is their big model, and chat interface. They have Notebook LM, which we talk a lot about on the podcast, but they're also building agents. And these agents will be trained and capable of, in essence, plugging into org charts, being able to do elements of jobs and working kind of side by side with the humans. If you have HubSpot, so, obviously they have marketing, sales, customer service, customer success, operations hubs. They're infusing AI into every aspect of their platform. Meta, if you use Instagram or Facebook or WhatsApp, you see Meta AI is now in the search window everywhere. So you can use it there. You can also go to meta.ai and experiment with their language model Llama and their image generation capabilities, which are actually pretty wild. As you're typing the prompt in, the image changes in real time. It's a pretty fascinating demo to take. And then Microsoft, not only are they a massive investor in OpenAI, we think about $14 billion they've put into OpenAI to date. They're building their own capabilities. They're doing deals with other frontier model companies. Just this week, they announced deals with Anthropic and Google to infuse their language models into GitHub, which is a brand and a company owned by Microsoft, and they're building their own AI agents. And then Salesforce, just this week, Agentforce, which is kind of how they're branding all their agents, became generally available to business users. So again, any piece of software you use, especially your core tech stack, they're going to build AI into everything. You won't even have to go looking for it. It's just going to be a part of what you do. Kind of like the new Apple Intelligence is going to be built into your phones, where you're just going to have AI in everything that you're using. And a really important takeaway here is if you look at AI today and you think about how good it is, or maybe you see limitations in it, just know that it's only going to get smarter and more generally capable from here. So every day you are using the dumbest form of AI we will ever have in human history. It shows no signs of slowing down. And so you have two choices basically as a professional or as a business leader or as an educator or whatever your role is. You can maintain status quo, sit in this class and think, that's just too much. It's overwhelming. I'm going to go back to my 9 to 5. I'm going to go do what I've been doing and do it the traditional way. Or I'm going to take the next step and I'm going to accelerate my own AI literacy and capabilities so I can become a change agent within my organization, within my industry, and really rethink my own career path. Because it is overwhelming. Like I think about this stuff all the time and I still have anxiety about it. I still get overwhelmed by it. But what I always tell people is, regardless of what happens next, whether or not there's disruption to jobs, whether or not there's job loss, anything like that, kind of the dark sides of this, the downsides, your greatest chance to get through that and actually come out ahead is to become AI forward. Now, by AI forward, what we mean is a professional who embraces AI, who thinks about it in a responsible way, and then constantly looks for ways to infuse it to drive their own efficiency, productivity, creativity, innovation, and performance. And if you're a leader in a company, to do the same for your team and your organization. And so I think of AI forward as being not only a mindset, but a career imperative for what happens next. So what is AI? This is obviously a very important fundamental thing in your kind of path to understanding and then being able to help other people along. So my favorite definition, founder and CEO of Google DeepMind, he says AI is the science of making machines smart. If you replace machines with software, this makes a whole lot more sense. So the software you use to do your job is getting smart. It's developing, as Sam said, the ability to think, to reason, to plan, to understand, to create. It wasn't previously capable of doing those things, but that is what's happening now. So AI, think of as this umbrella term for the tools and technologies that make machines or software smart. The form the
Recording in
output is a
progress.
prediction about what you're going to do next. But now, since 2022, which is kind of crazy to think about, we're only like 2 years into this, really, the commercial availability of these technologies. We now have AI that can generate text, images, video, audio, and code. And we have models, AI models, that are going to be trained on all of these modalities. So the early forms of these language models was text in, text out. They trained it on a bunch of text and it could output text. Now they're training these models on all these different modalities, and they'll be able to output all of these different modalities. So I've mentioned large language models a few times already. What a large language model does is basically predicts the next token or word. So when you go into ChatGPT and you put a prompt in, what's basically happening is the machine is predicting what the most likely next word is. Now, in technical speak, a word is made up of a series of tokens. So the machine's actually predicting a piece of a word, but for our purposes today, this is all you really need to understand. So if you start a sentence, the cat sat on, the language model is there, it does its thing, it looks at all the possible words that could come next because it's learned how humans speak from all this training data that went into it, and the highest probability is the. Now imagine this happening thousands of times per second, and that's how you get ChatGPT writing your emails and proposals and landing pages and ad copy and all these things. It's just predicting the next word. Now, does it actually understand what it's doing and understand language? We don't really know, but the whole point is it's simulating it really well if it's not actually understanding it. And so this opens up all kinds of use cases. So the flaw I see in a lot of enterprises when they're thinking about adoption or even within schools, which I talk to a lot of schools about this, is they think AI is a replacement for writing. And that's kind of how it stops. They look at all the ways that they create content and they think AI could just do that for them. To me, that is the least interesting thing AI does. Now, part of that may be because I'm a writer by trade. I came out of journalism school. I ran a content agency for 16 years. Like I enjoy the process of writing. I find that writing is what enables me to think critically about topics and to develop a point of view on things. So I have zero interest in these models doing the writing for me. I enjoy that process. Now, it might help me with the outline or it might help me improve my writing, but I want to do the writing myself. But there's all these other ways you could be using these models as a strategic partner, which is one of the primary ways I use it, is actually to think through ideas of my own. Summarization, transcription, translation, personalization, all of these are fascinating use cases. If you haven't tried Notebook LM from Google, they just got, I think, yesterday announced as one of Time Magazine's top 100 products or innovations of 2024. We talk a lot about this product on the podcast, but it's incredible. You can put a bunch of content in, build study guides, briefing docs, timelines. You can now do audio overviews where you generate a podcast on demand, a completely AI generated podcast on demand. So part of the goal here is just to understand what AI is capable of, because you start to find all these use cases that you might otherwise be missing if you just think about it as a writing replacement. To give you a sense of the landscape, on the left are the companies that are building the frontier models. These are the companies that are putting hundreds of millions and soon to be billions of dollars into training. Meta just tweeted yesterday that they're currently training their next model, Llama 4, on 100,000 NVIDIA chips, which each cost about $30,000 to $35,000. So we're talking about companies spending hundreds of millions of dollars just on the chips to do the current training runs. By this time next year, you won't do a training run for under $1 billion. So you have to be a massive company with a ton of funding or market cap to be able to do this kind of thing. On the right are samples of companies that build software on top of these models. Now, a real important thing is these models and the ability for them to understand and generate language is just the foundation for what comes next. It's always been a focus of these research labs to understand and generate language because they thought that would help them solve intelligence. So they didn't set out to write your emails. They set out to solve human intelligence and embody that within machines, as crazy as that sounds. So I mentioned this multimodality thing, how these models are going to be trained on and capable of outputting images, text, video, audio, code, and other modalities. To understand how fast they're improving, the best way to do this is to actually look at image generation technology. So this is Midjourney. This is 6 iterations of the software over 22 months, the same prompt being given. On the left, you have abstract output. On the right, you have photorealism. That same rate of improvement is happening in video generation. So this is a demonstration of Sora, the forthcoming video gen model from OpenAI. Google has this. You can go experience Runway, Luma Labs right now. Like a lot of people, Meta is building this capability. So you're going to be able to output this high definition video from simple prompts. You can also go into ChatGPT and use it as a data analysis tool. And as of last week, you can do the same thing in Anthropic Claude. You can tie this to Google Drive or Microsoft Drive. Don't do that without permission if you're doing it with company data. You can upload CSVs, same deal. Don't upload stuff you shouldn't be uploading without permission and clearance. But once you have this data in there safely, you can talk to it. You can have the AI build your pivot tables and find the anomalies and build your charts for you. And then in the not too distant future, you'll have analytics agents that you'll tell, schedule this report for me and create it on every Sunday night. And it'll just create it and send it to you. So that's where we're going with this technology, is having all these abilities, but then having the potential for the AI agents to start automating a lot of the work for us. And that's where this idea of these AI agents come in. Is to date, generative AI has given us outputs. It creates something for us. It doesn't take actions. What every major AI company is working on, though, is the ability to take actions reliably. So if you listen to the podcast, the Artificial Intelligence Show, we talked about computer use means is it gives the AI the ability keyboard and I would. So it can go to websites, it can click on buttons, it can fill out forms, it can put in credit card information. We are very early in AI agents and computer use. It's not reliable. It's generally not safe. Uh, it's not going to
Recording in
change things
progress.
like that. Siri is supposed to now become a true intelligent assistant that will have eventually, sometime maybe next year, access to the apps on your phone and it'll be able to go in and do things within those apps. We're seeing the same kind of things emerging from OpenAI as well as voice, which is a huge component. So if you haven't tried advanced voice, which came out, I think, sometime last month, maybe in September, go try the advanced voice mode from OpenAI. It's pretty remarkable. And what we're going to have probably sometime next year is Project Astra from Google. So this is a demonstration from earlier this year. Project Astra has computer vision capability, meaning it can see and understand things around this project back. Apple will likely play in this world with some sort of wearable device, but your phones and your glasses are going to be able to see and understand the world around them. And so within the next kind of 1 to 2 years, it'll start to change the way with which we interact with the world. And so it's really helpful conversations with question and answer. In September, they introduced the early version of level two, their O1 preview model, which is a reasoning engine. Now, the reason that matters is because recommendation or an insight. Machines historically haven't been able to do that. They couldn't go through 10, 15, 20, 100 steps over 10 minutes, an hour, a week, a month. That's not how they worked. And so they're trying to give machines the ability to do this. We are likely, probably somewhere around the 2 year anniversary of ChatGPT, so within the next month or so, which may or may not actually be GPT-5. I'm still not really sure yet, but we're going to get the full version of O1, which is the earliest form of kind of a true reasoning engine. And then that leads to intelligent agents, which leads to level 4 and level 5 that I'm not going to get into in an intro to AI class. But the key here is what these labs are pursuing is what's called artificial general intelligence, or AGI. Now, the problem with AGI is no one really agrees on what it is. There's no uniform definition, and therefore we don't actually know when we've gotten there. So you can see a collection of different definitions. The current one I'm using, which is subject to change, is AI that is generally capable, meaning humans are generally capable of learning a bunch of cognitive tasks. If you take a 3-year-old, you have little kids or raised kids, and you think about how quickly they learned different tasks, from speaking to reading to listening to learning to riding bikes to doing all these things that require your brain to think and learn new skills. That's not how a machine works. The machines are trained to do specific things, not generally capable of cognitive tasks across many things. And so that's what they're building. That's what AGI is a model that is generally capable of doing many cognitive tasks. It can write your emails, create your ads, it can build your strategic plans, it can analyze your staffing, like it can go across these different disciplines, different business functions. And the key thing to keep in mind that isn't talked about enough is these things don't have to be superhuman, as Elon Musk kind of thinks of it. They just need to be better than the person who would otherwise do the work. And this is a very transformational thought when you start to think about all the people maybe you've worked with in your career who weren't very good at their jobs. That's the kind of people who are going to be most threatened by AI as we move forward if they themselves don't use AI to level up their own capabilities. And so OpenAI literally has this as their mission statement, is to build AGI. Many of them come right out and tell you this. Now, my feeling here is I'm actually not that interested in what it really is or when it occurs, if we have a moment where we now think we have it, because we don't have to get to AGI for AI to transform everything. We could stop development of these models today, and I don't think most companies have come to grips with how capable they already are. Okay, so let's bring this into a little bit of a more tactical world of what do you do with this information. So there's two ways we teach this. There's a problem-based model and a use case model. The problem-based model I think of as more the director level and above, because you're looking at pain points and challenges across the organization and thinking about it more strategically. And the use case model can be for any practitioner. So in the problem-based model, you have a known pain point or challenge that you think maybe AI can help us solve this more intelligently in a different way than we've traditionally looked at it. So what you want to do in a problem-based model is you want to identify a collection of problem statements. Now, with each problem statement, you want a value statement. The reason is if you make a list of 5 or 10 problem statements, you want to know the value of solving each of them because that helps you to prioritize. So you can do this, and even if you're on this call and you're not a marketer, you can do this in any function of business. These are just some example business challenges you might want to think through to identify some problems. And then and to help you with this, I actually built something called Problems GPT, which is a free tool. Claire can drop the link in chat. But what this does is it enables you to go through and identify problems, get help with your existing problems. It'll help you draft the problem and value statements. And then once you've kind of finalized that, it'll actually build you a strategic brief on how you could leverage AI to address that problem in a completely different way. And so you can see in the example here, I'm using like event ticket sales. I actually give it our specific goal. So now it's pretty easy to arrive at a value statement because I've given it some specific numbers. But you'll see it then gives me my problem and value statement. It's like, hey, does this look good? If so, great. And then I say, yeah, that's perfect. Like, let's go ahead and build a brief. And then it'll actually develop a strategic brief with the problem statement as the leader. It goes through a format I've trained it on, which is issues and drivers, recommendations, timelines, all these things. So if you want a quick start on the problem-based model, this is stuff like when I was running my agency, I probably would have been charging $25,000 and it would have taken me 45 days to do it. This does it for you in 45 seconds. In the use case model, and again, this is more of the practitioner level, you're trying to find pilot projects that you can run and then stack a bunch of successes on top. So the way to do this is think about your job or someone on your team's job and look for all the tasks that are data-driven, repetitive, predictive, or generative, meaning you're making a prediction about outcome or behavior. The repetitive is you do the same 10 steps every time. Generative is you're creating text, images, video, audio code. Data-driven is pretty self-explanatory. So again, think of your job as a bundle of tasks. Now, the thing I see as a major flaw in current thinking, not just with business leaders, but economists, the government, everyone's planning for today's capability. Proof jobs and think about GPT-6, 7 are going to do. And so I built this exposure key as a way to try and predict this. And then I took and I actually trained Jobs GPT on it. So again, this is a custom chat GPT that is free. You can go use it right now. You just need a chat GPT account. And what this does is you can give it any job title and upload your actual job description, and it will identify for rationale and drill into it. Ask it to, explain that weekly campaign into a collection of tasks. And then you can use Campaigns GPT to do the same thing. Like, okay, let's do a podcast, or let's do a lead generation campaign, or an email nurturing campaign, or a customer retention campaign. You can put whatever you want in there, and it'll break those campaigns into a collection of tasks and then do the same analysis for you of all the different ways you could be using AI, how much time it could be saving you, and the rationale for why it thinks. So the future of all work, when you think about this, is basically going to come down to at a task level. Again, we're not talking about job replacement here. We're saying if a job is broken into tasks, what's the human going to do? What's the machine going to do? Prior to 2022, almost all software you were using was level zero. That software could not think, it could not reason, it didn't understand anything. It did what you told it to do. It never improved unless someone updated the software code. We're now very squarely in level one, level two. Many of the tasks that you do, the AI can assist with. Maybe it's 10% of the work, maybe it's 50% of the work. If you're doing coding, customer service, some early sales functions, research, you could be getting into a realm where the AI can do 50% or more of that task. Level three is still pretty rare. Again, like coding and customer service would be two areas where we're seeing level three probably being achieved, where like 75% of the work being done. Sundar Pichai, the CEO of Google, in their earnings call 2 nights ago, said that like more than 25% of all code being written within Google is being written by their AI first. So you're starting to see this like true transformation of different business functions. Level four is where you would get into these AI agents where you just give it a goal and then it does all the work for you. But the key here, don't get caught up thinking about level three and level four yet. Think about level one. Think about the ways you can infuse AI to do a little bit of the tasks where you start to realize real value. Because a little bit of AI can go a really long way if you have the right personalized use cases, the right data, the right technology. Okay, so to make sure we leave plenty of time for Q&A, I'll kind of start wrapping up here with what do you do next? Obviously, this is just meant to be an intro. It's meant to give you a foundational understanding and hopefully a little look around the corner to realize how quickly this is going to change and how rapidly it's going to start to impact your job and your companies. So there's two types of people generally who are on this call. First is people who are thinking about their personal transformation. They're trying to understand how they can use this in their job. They're looking for use cases and technologies to drive their own productivity, creativity, and performance. Maybe they're looking for their next role. Maybe they're seeing their company not doing enough and thinking, I could do something here if I could just figure out what this stuff is. And so you could be looking at it as a career advancement and transformation play. The second, and you can be in both buckets here, it's not exclusively one or the other. You're here thinking about business transformation. Going into 2025, maybe your organization hasn't figured this stuff out yet, and you're trying to think, how does this impact my team, my company, my department? And you're looking more broadly at things that can drive productivity, creativity, performance, innovation across a broader spectrum within your company. Maybe you're thinking about other stakeholders, like what does this mean to our customers? How can we improve customer success and experiences through AI? And then just big picture, how do we drive business growth and efficiency and innovation? So regardless of whether you're one or both of those, we think of the best path forward as a path to AI mastery. So at the bottom is comprehension, understanding the fundamentals of what it is, what it's capable of doing, what its weaknesses are today, how those weaknesses may not be there a year from now, and what that means to you. Competency comes from experimentation with the tools. You've got to just be trying them. You've got to be playing around with different prompting techniques yourself. You got to learn how these things work. And then mastery is like a high level of proficiency where you could be relied on to bring other people in your organization along. Now, we try and do a lot to provide as much free education and training as possible. Again, that whole AI literacy for all concept being brought to life through our weekly newsletter, the podcast that Mike and I do every Tuesday, our book, not free, but basically pretty close to it. And so there's a lot of ways, depending on where you're at in your learning journey, you can get started. And we're just one resource. There's tons of resources out there to really advance your knowledge and capabilities. What I always tell people is think about your own learning process. Like, how do you learn best? Is it podcasts? Is it newsletters? Is it books? Is it taking online courses? Whatever it is, that's what you should pursue. And just pick one thing and do that next. Now, if you're really ready to dive into the piloting side of this, our sort of flagship online course series, Piloting AI for Marketers, is available on demand today. I first created this in 2023, and then we re-recorded it and updated it fully in 2024. And so this is 18 courses. It's about 9 hours. If you go at 1x speed, you can certainly speed it up. There's product demos, quizzes. There's a final exam. If you pass the final exam, 80% or higher, I believe, you earn a professional certificate. We give you an inside look at everything we're doing in the Institute, slide decks, templates, course materials, all of it you get. And there's a brand new course this year I created called Generative AI 101. So Mike Kaput and I, my co-host and our chief content officer, teach these courses. And you can go to pilotingai.com and grab those today. And there's a $50 off code, intro 42, that you can use. So again, if you want to just dive right in and figure this stuff out, that's a great accelerant to get you going. Okay, so my final thoughts here is whatever you do, whatever your next step in the learning journey is, don't wait around till next year, next quarter. Like, do something now to start advancing your capabilities so that you can raise your hand and be a change agent in your organization, because the future of all industries, every profession, every knowledge profession is human plus machine, and that future is happening right now. And with that, I will welcome back Kathy McPhillips for our favorite portion, the Q&A.
Not the favorite. I mean, you do a nice job. Just so
What's my favorite?
Oh, I have so many questions. Okay, there have been some questions about, okay, you say that 50% of work is going to be reduced, or whatever that percentage is. You know, your agency talked about that you could charge $25,000 and you did it. And what does that mean? What does that mean for agencies, for companies? What should they be doing?
Yeah, so we have our AI for Agencies Summit coming up November 20th. It's a virtual summit. And this is our second year. And so last year, what I did with my opening keynote for that summit was I tried to put myself in the shoes of an agency CEO again. I've been out of that role for 3 years now, but I still think about it. I think, what would I do if I ran an agency? And the reality is there's a lot of things that agencies have traditionally charged for. And if you're a brand side, this is relevant to you too, because you've been paying agencies to do these things that ChatGPT can now do in some cases better than your agency probably could. The agencies have to be realistic about this. They have to understand that clients aren't going to pay the same amounts for things they know you're using ChatGPT to do. They know you're doing it faster, and they don't want to be paying the same fees they were paying before, most likely. But there's this whole world of things that these brands don't understand. They don't know what to do. They don't know how to build custom GPTs. They don't know how to train their own language models internally, or if they should. They don't know how to do change management around this stuff. Like, most brands we talk to are at a complete deficit of business-minded leaders who understand this stuff deeply. And so for agencies that accelerate their own literacy and capabilities, train their own teams, build internal academies, build AI councils, build centers of excellence to advance their own capabilities, that's what you have to do. Like, you have to see around the corner by doing it. And then brand leaders, you have to align yourselves with agencies that are doing that. You cannot continue to work with agencies that aren't figuring this out and being a strategic partner for you within it, because otherwise you're going to fall behind way too fast. Agency, but it can be an amazing time because you can also reinvent, can rethink the way agencies are done. And you and I, Kathy, see it all the time. We have a bunch of incredible agencies that are part of our, I mean, we have 5 or 6 of them speaking at our AI for Agencies Summit who are telling case studies of how they're evolving their agencies. Like, it's out there, but if you sit still, you're done.
Right. Yeah, that's scary. I mean, both of us come from agency. You owned an agency, but I worked at 2 agencies, had my own agency by definition for a very long time. And it's just like, you look back and you're like, oh my gosh, AI could have helped us in so many ways. And, you know, what are some things you see, and I don't want us to get at agencies for the entire time, but just for another minute or two, what are some human things that AI really can't do that agencies should be focusing on?
Yeah, I mean, I just go back. Like, so I had this thought yesterday. I don't know if I'm going to put this in my AI for Agencies opening keynote this year or not. So if you're on the call, you're just kind of getting a preview of my thinking. But
still come.
Yeah. So, and you can do this on a brand side too. So, when we would get a new client as an agency, you would spend like 30 days trying to understand that client. You'd do audits, you would go have in-person meetings, you record it so you could eventually transcribe it, you would share with the account team, you would train everybody up on that business. I was thinking yesterday, like how much more efficient that would be today if I took the same process. I did my audits, I did my interviews, but all that goes into a notebook that's shared with my team internally. Or I build a custom GPT that's shared internally that's trained on all the business information about that client. And now, anytime someone gets involved with that account manager changes over, whatever it is, you can basically build a custom GPT or Google Gem, whatever, for that client that rapidly accelerates your understanding of their business, your ability to interact with research that was done about them, things like that. And then you could keep adding knowledge base to it to get smarter and smarter over time.
Right.
So you could do the same thing on the brand side where you're building this for your demand team. It's like everything they need to know just housed into a single notebook or ChatGPT instance. And so I just think there's ways to totally reimagine every component of what an agency does, from their own operations and sales and marketing to customer service and client relations. But it frees you up to like really build those deeper relationships with the client, to like really listen to them when they're talking, and then leverage the technology where you can to keep adding more value.
Sure. Okay, I'm going to switch gears.
Yep.
So you talked about, when you were going through the Macon ticket sales as a problem, when you put it through problems GPT.
Yeah.
And however, there's that fine line between putting in too much information. Am I training AI on my proprietary information? I decoupled it. I took the PII out. All those things. Like if these people are just getting started and they're like, can I put my data in? Can I not? Like, what's a safe way to start without having to go to IT and legal and to, or is that always the first step?
Yeah, I mean, the first step is check the terms of use, like what you're permitting them to do, and I would absolutely make sure legal and IT are okay with whatever you're doing. So the big one is obviously putting in confidential, proprietary information, things like that. And then you're just kind of trusting these companies that most of them, like the big enterprise ones, like Google and Microsoft and Anthropic and OpenAI, they know enterprises aren't wanting their data trained on. So they have to default to not doing that. And so if you have an enterprise license with them, Copilot, Gemini, ChatGPT Enterprise, things like that, I believe the default on all of them is that they don't train on your data. Now you have to trust that's true, and your legal and IT, depending on the size of your company and the industry, have to trust that that's true. But I mean, for me, like I've actually started with like custom GPTs and things to like put some pretty deep information about the business, because I've found that my experience has become way more valuable the more it actually knows about the business and how I think. And so I'm finding myself like really trying to kind of custom train versions of this that understand a lot of what goes on in my own head, because I'm trying to find a strategic advisor in essence within these systems. And my early returns are they're extremely good at that when they're given the right amount of information.
So there are some things you're putting in there that are proprietary.
Yeah. Yep.
But you have done your due diligence and
I
made
mean,
sure that
the way I look at it is nothing is you can have whatever terms of use you want, but like we all know the reality we live in of like people can get whatever data they want if they spend enough money and put enough resources at it. So do I think that anything I put in ChatGPT is free from ever getting hacked in some way? Absolutely not. Like it's just, but that's the nature of anything. Like that's the cloud providers you trust your proprietary data to could get hacked. Like anything's
trust
possible.
your employees.
Yeah, like it's just
yeah.
So I think that there, and this is the fun, like I have that law of uneven AI distribution. This theory I wrote a couple of years ago of like we all have the ability to do what I just said. Like you can put your P&L statements in, you can put all your like staffing information in, you can put everything about your industry, your vision for where it's going, all of your revenue models, everything, performance data, and your experience is going to be way richer. If it knows that stuff, you're going to get way more valuable. But your company may not be willing to do that. So your benefits from ChatGPT will be less than somebody's who is willing to do that. Mm-hmm. Now, a side note here is brand side, you need to decide if your agencies are allowed to do those sorts of things. So if your agencies have access to confidential proprietary information and you don't exclusively tell them they cannot use that data to train custom GPTs for their internal account teams to use, There's nothing stopping them from doing that. And they may not even have a thought that that's wrong or dangerous in any way. So there's lots of layers to this. But the fundamental thing is like we all have to choose how we're going to use these tools, and will we or will we not take advantage of their full capabilities, which often means giving up something. There may be some confidentiality, like you're trusting these companies with that stuff.
Okay, here's
And I don't have all the answers, by the way. Like I'm feeling this out. I have yet to put a P&L statement up into a knowledge base in ChatGPT. Like I haven't found myself willing to go that far yet. But I'm like, I don't know, I'm getting close. I'm kind of like,
that's why
policies are so critical. You have to put the guardrails